I also would like to show you how I perform maintenance on our 3D printers, how you change the filament, and how to make sure that the 3D printer nozzle is on appropriate height in respect to the table. So for that purpose, we will switch here to the desk camera. All 3D printers operate the same way. To turn on all three on this table, there's a switch in the back of the table you'll be able to find. So the very first thing I want to do here is to zero 3D printer. So if you click on here, it says prepare. You can click on auto home, and the 3D printer is going to start its homing sequence. Okay. There are end switches, for example this one here, and once it hits the end switch it knows that it reaches its limits. There's an end switch here for this limit. Okay. Now you're in a start position for your 3D printer. The next thing we will want to do, I will want to turn off the motors. Prepare, disable stepper, turn off the motors, and now I can start pulling and moving these things forth and back. If this is done properly, it should not scratch on the surface. In fact, the way we align this is with 4 screws on all 4 corners of the print table. So I cannot move my piece of paper below, so that means that this stage is not well, let me see here, is not well aligned. I will try to do the auto homing one more time and see whether this improves it. So I repeated the process. I now hold piece of paper, move the nozzle on top, right, and go in one corner. About here. If I move this forth and back, you should feel a little bit of rubbing. I move it all the way to the other side. There should be some rubbing too, and otherwise you turn the knob down here. Now we pull the stage all the way out. It still has a little bit of rubbing, it's not tight. And the same thing over here. Okay? If there is too much force, you will have to loosen the screw and either tighten it for the table to go down in that corner, or to loosen it to go up in the corner. You will need to go through this in a circle multiple times until this is nicely aligned with its height. Okay? So the goal is to keep a distance between the nozzle and the stage so it's exactly the thickness of a piece of paper. All right? If something messed up, let's try to take a look whether we can actually see in between here. It can happen that there is a buildup of material. When the machine is turned off, it will cool down and the material will be almost impossible to be removed. So for that case, you have to turn on the heater. All right. This device here, you can go to prepare, and for example preheat PLA, and you can heat the stage as well as the nozzle, or just the nozzle. The nozzle is called the end piece. If you heat the end piece, the temperature will start increasing. It says here the stage is 23 and it's supposed to be 26, and the nozzle is supposed to be 200 and it's right now at 0. So it will get going and increase its temperature until it reaches the temperature that you selected here. Right, preheat PLA. That's the material we're printing. Is a plastic. And now the temperature should increase. We can see here it's the nozzle is at 60 and the stage is already at 25. And the end temperature, the ones we want to reach, is about this is 104 degrees. This is the nozzle and this is the stage. Sorry. So the nozzle is supposed to be 200. It's at 116 right now, and the stage is at 30 and supposed to be 60. Right. So we can warm it up. And since we turned off the motors, we can move this forth and back easily, and potentially we can move this even up and down. Now we need to engage the motors to move this up. So if you want to prepare, move an axis, X, Y, and you want to move the Z axis, right, we can move Z axis. We want to move by 1 millimeter. And now we can turn the knob, 2 millimeter up, 3, 4, 5, pour in a whole bunch. The stage will start moving up, and you have space underneath here to clean your nozzle. Of course, if a nozzle is 200 centigrades, it will burn your fingers if you directly touch it. Okay? If you need to conduct maintenance at the nozzle, you probably can take a piece of cloth, not as dirty as this one, move it forth and back and try to get things off if they get stuck there. Usually it's not necessary. The leveling of your stage is very important. If it's not done, your print will not succeed. Okay. So the last piece I would like to show you is how to replace the filament or change the filament, right? The filament is located up here. This is a spool with plastic that is fed through a motor, and this tiny little gear that has teeth on it, it's going through this wire into the nozzle and being extruded at the bottom of the nozzle. So if you want to change the filament, you will need to pull back the filament out of this device. If the nozzle is cold, it will stuck. So we'll have to first change the temperature, go to prepare, go to prepare and do the same thing as we did before, preheat PLA. We just want to heat the end piece or the stage or both, but at least the end piece to the temperature that is needed. At this time, it's 200 centigrade. This is what I can see here on the display. 200 centigrade, so it's heated. That means it's no more, it's all melted inside the nozzle, and we should be able to pull it back. To pull it back, there is a spring-loaded mechanism. You're supposed to be able to just pull on here. Then this wheel comes up, and you're supposed to be able to pull out the filament. Okay? There's a problem. Now the filament broke. Right? It's supposed to be much longer. So let's see what I can do here. Okay, I did not push this hard enough, so I now need to use the motor to pull it back. So that for that purpose, I go in the manual operation of the motor. Prepare, move axis, move the extruder, and I can go here to, let's say, 1 millimeter at a time. I check up here on this brass piece in which direction it rotates. So this right, if I turn clockwise it goes in, and counterclockwise it goes out. So I'm just going to try to pull this all the way back. Yeah, I'm seeing the filament coming out here in the back. Let's say I have minus 100 millimeters. I let this go. It's still turning, And so let it go until I can see a gap, or I can see the filament all the way out. So you can see there is now a nice section of filament out here. I pull here again. I push. I compress this. this piece here I compress, and I will try to pull the filament out. Okay, there's quite a bit of material out now. You can see there is now there's a transparent tube here. I put a little more, and it's all the way out. You can see there is some melted material here from inside of the extruder. So this piece is now removed. You exchange this spool. You will not want this to unwind, so you feed it here through this hole and back into the other hole. That will hold your filament still, and now it's ready for storage. Some of them need to be stored in humidified environment. I think this should be fine. Okay, so let's see what we got. We got the white one here. I get my white filament. Okay. I put my white filament up here. I take this piece, try to move it into the hole. You can see from the top that it's touching the brass piece. I try to move it through the brass, on top of the brass piece by compressing and putting this in, and now I should be able to insert this with the motor. So when we are minus 100, I'm going to move it in the other direction, in the clockwise direction, and this is spinning and moving the filament slowly into the tube. When you try to do this by hand, it's really hard to get it in properly. Okay, I can see both wheels turning, so there's nothing stuck. It's in it. Now to go faster, I compress and I feed this in by hand. You could see that the filament is moving along there. I move it in until I feel resistance. Okay. Now you should be able to see materials coming out at the bottom here. Let's broom all the way down. You can see that the black material is being pushed out and the white material is coming out. Okay. Make sure that the axis is no longer moving. This brass piece is no longer turning. I let this go until there's just a tiny bit. That's good enough. To remove the very last piece, we can take the tweezers and move this out here, and that's it. Okay? So this is how I change the filament, level the table, and do a little bit of maintenance on the 3D printer.